my family, um, they were farmers on the Malfitana side. My Italian family, they were immigrants from Italy. They were very poor. They started out as sharecroppers in the late 1800s, early 1900s. When they came to this nation, they worked as sharecroppers, working the lettuce and onion fields in upstate New York. They finally got an opportunity to get some of their own land. My great grandfather, his name was also Carmen. My grandfather and my great grandfather and my dad, their own names were all Carmen. And all they could get was swamp. So it was an area called the Clay Marsh in upstate New York, in North Syracuse, New York. And it was all swamp. And so my great grandfather and his three sons and his wife, Annunzia, we called her Nancy, and all their children, with help from some other people, they literally dug canals and drained the swamp. So my family drained a swamp. They were canal diggers. I just prayed about having the Cyrus anointing. Kurt Landry Ministries, a couple months ago, they did a prayer to receive that Cyrus anointing, and I've asked for it. And it's interesting because going back to my family bloodline, talking about family blessings, my grandfather on the Malfitana side and my great grandfather, they diverted water. They built canals and they actually drained a swamp. And I used to live near the Erie Canal up in New York. So I know all about canals. I used to walk to school. We walk across the Erie Canal and we would walk across those locks. And I know all about that. I know all about the gates opening and diverting water. And so my great grandparents, they drained the swamp. They made these gates and floodgates and made irrigation channels. They literally cleared out that clay marsh, made the most fertile farmland you ever saw. They called it the muck. And it was this black, fertile soil. I can still remember putting my hands in that soil and planting lettuce and onions and flowers and strawberries in it because they had greenhouses. As a little girl, I would sit on a stool with my grandmother, me and my sisters, and my grandpa would bring up big barrels of that soil from down in the muck where all the lettuce and the onions, they had it beautiful. It was they worked so hard. And that land was so gorgeous. We would stand on the hill and look upon it, and those deep, fertile lines of black soil. Maybe those of you in upstate New York have seen that. Okay. And so my grandpa would bring up barrels of this deep, fertile black soil that was from the base of the marsh after it had been drained and cleaned out. And my family literally drained a swamp. My family did. Now I'm trying to do it prophetically in the spirit, but they drained the swamp. My grandpa would bring barrels up of that black soil. And we would put it into planters, and we would plant strawberries, and we would plant all these flowers. And my grandpa had the most beautiful flowers. And I can remember that soil was so soft and loamy, and you could dig your hands into it deep. And it was so rich. And the most beautiful strawberries would come from it, and lettuce and onions. And we would go out and we would help my grandpa work the land. And I can remember that as a young girl. And so I know all about digging these canals and these channels to drain a swamp. And what's at the bottom of that swamp? The most fertile soil you've ever seen to grow crops in. My family did it.